Morning again, class. We're going to do a very quick mini lecture today because a lot of the work is actually going to be on you. So this is a little bit different style of assignment, something new. If you want to give me feedback on how it goes, please do so. Maybe we can do something like this again between now and the end of the year, or if, God forbid, the same sort of setup happens in September and we're doing distance learning at that time as well. No one can predict what's happening, so I'm just trying to think ahead of schedule. So today we're just going to focus on Nixon's domestic policies. But before we do that, I just want to mention last lecture. I probably should have also mentioned here, actually added it to the notes. So if I do it again, you should also be aware of the EPA. I think I mentioned that verbally, but I didn't actually have it written down. That's another really important part of the Nixon administration, right? Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, and the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. That's going to be where I actually begin today's mini lecture. That is a government agency, the same way that we have a branch of the, different branches of the military or a Department of Education, the Department of Environmental Protection, that's known as the EPA. And they're heavily regulating our air, our water, all things to make our lives healthier and safer and cleaner as well. So that's one of the major domestic policy achievements pushed under the Nixon administration. If you don't know the year offhand, I want to say you can fact check me on it. Maybe I'm gonna guess 1971, give or take a year. All right. The two ones we're going to focus on today are affirmative action and Title IX. Now, I'm actually going to let you learn about this on your own, and that's what today's assignment is all about. So if you go to our little Google Doc here, you can see I have some instructions here. Read this. What you're going to do is you're going to pick one or the other, either affirmative action or Title IX, and you're going to watch 3 clips. Um, Basically some pro, some con, and then you're going to comment on this lecture that I'm giving you right now on your thoughts. Now, your thought could just be a question. It could be whether or not you think it's a good policy or a bad policy. There's really good arguments, as usual, on both sides of this issue, or maybe you have a better solution than how we implement affirmative action. Maybe you love it, maybe you don't love it, maybe you like parts of it, but you want to tweak it. So if you have your own ideas, you can do that. What I really want you guys doing is interacting with each other more. Usually your comments are just your comment or your question, and then sometimes I'll um, answer them, or sometimes I'll just like it. um, you can actually speak to one another as well. I think that would be good because there's a lot of different opinions on this issue, but I want you to educate yourself first. So don't comment until you've seen all 3 videos. They're all short. I don't think any video is more than like 6 minutes, so it shouldn't take you all that long. So let me just explain very briefly what each one of these does. Affirmative action was a policy designed in order to promote more minority representation, first in the workplace, but then what we're going to focus on in the videos that you're going to see is in college admissions as well. And I'll kind of let the videos speak for themselves in terms of the pros and cons behind that. What we do know is prior to this affirmative action policy, there was disproportionate underrepresentation of all minorities, whether you're talking about Latinos, African Americans, Asians, women. College was essentially a rich white male enterprise. And since college was a platform to more success in life, the government and the American people decided to do something in order to promote more opportunities for more people. Second is Title IX. This is also a kind of broad policy, but I want to focus on the sports end because that's something that's easier to wrap our heads around. The other issue is that's like a hot button thing in the news today. If you Google it, everything about sexual discrimination will come back up, and I'd rather not open up the comments to something like that. So just focus on the sports angle. Again, watch all 3 videos before you do anything. But the idea behind Title IX was to get more women involved in sports because before Title IX was passed, something like a single digit percentage, something like 7% of of varsity athletes in schools, in high schools, were um, were women or were girls. So this is going to sort of change that, and it's interesting. I want you guys to try something at home. Maybe you can comment in the comments here as well. Ask to see your parents' high school yearbook if they have access to it. And I want you to look through the sports section and want you to count up how many male teams there are and how many female teams there are. Or if you're willing, how many female varsity athletes there are versus how many male varsity athletes there are. And then compare that to today, like at MVOT. Think about how many different sports teams we have for girls, and think about how many sports teams we have for boys. Maybe you want to make a list and do the fall sports, winter sports, and then spring sports, and see how many programs we offer for the boys and how many programs we offer for the girls. Now, some are offered for both, right? There's a track team for boys and girls, but some are actually gender specific, like softball versus baseball. So you might want to use that as your comment below as well. So Title IX is another thing. Again, I'll let the videos speak for themselves. Next thing that Nixon did was the ending the military draft. Military draft was super unpopular because there was a certain war going on at this time in 1970. You should be thinking of the Vietnam War. You should have figured that out before I got there. So ended the draft, which decreased tensions in the United States. The next thing he did was the 26th Amendment. This is going to reduce the voting age from 21 years of age down to 18. Right? Again, you can use the comments to explain whether or not you think that's a good or a bad idea. Just to be clear, I want everyone doing this activity as well. So if you want to comment on these other things, great. Do the high school yearbook. I think that'd be a lot of fun, actually. But I want everyone doing this project as well, because you really do need to know what affirmative action and Title IX are. They're going to be under test, so make sure you know them. So this was a movement to move the voting age down from 21 to 18. There's a movement now in some states to move it down even further. There are some municipalities, I believe in California, that allow people to vote when they're, I think it's 16 and a half is the proposal. Not sure if that's a good idea to allow 16 and a half year olds to vote. I think there's some 16-year-olds who can vote. I think I have some of those 16-year-olds in my class. You probably know who you are, and your peers do too. But others just aren't politically engaged and probably aren't in a position to do that. I know I was in no position to vote when I was 16. Actually, I was no position to vote when I was 18 either. But that's the 26th Amendment to reduce the voting age. And then finally, the final piece of domestic policy issues affecting the Nixon administration, something we actually covered a little bit already. That's the Watergate scandal. I know Mr. Green covered that pretty well in his video during the last unit, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. But the Watergate scandal led to his resignation in August of 1974. He was found to be complicit, if not involved. There's no evidence he was involved, but it's hard to believe he didn't know something was happening. The president knows basically everything, right? So if there's a scandal below the president, chances are the president knew about it as well, right? So the Watergate scandal was when the Republican Party broke into the Watergate Hotel and tried to steal a whole bunch of documents from the Democratic Party, and then used that to their political advantage in the lead up to the 1972 election. And then this whole thing, took a few years to unravel, and by 1974, it looked like Nixon was kind of guilty as the day is long. Again, no actual, no empirical evidence has shown up to suggest that he was involved. But if the people working for him are doing it, it's hard to believe that they didn't tell him what they found, and that he didn't know about it afterwards. And then he kind of covered up everything during the investigation. So he wound up resigning, the only president ever in American history to resign from the presidency. So his presidency kind of has this huge scar on it, huge stain against his record. But in general, a lot of people, a lot of moderates like me, a lot of conservatives like him because of his Cold War policies, and a lot of liberals like them because of the policies that we've just talked about, environmental. This has to do with mostly race, but also gender. This is more about gender as well. So he's kind of a mixed bag. Some people absolutely think he was a fantastic president. Others not so much. But there's no question that the Watergate scandal is the huge check mark against him. in this case. So I'm going to end lecture there. I'm going to let you guys kind of do the rest. Use the comments below to explain your opinion or any questions you guys have on either affirmative action or Title IX. And if you have additional comments, I'm happy to respond to those as well. All right, good luck.